Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, a place where industry experts discuss how technology is impacting our life, our work, while also transforming entire industries and even the world. Every day, I'm going to be serving you a daily dose of optimism and motivation while highlighting along the way that technology really does work best when it brings people together. Now, I often talk about the digital transformation of industries that you don't associate with technology or are often thought of being slow to adapt to technological change on this podcast. And in today's episode, I want to explore the maritime industry, an area that I think we all now know the importance of because it's responsible for the carriage of around 90% of world trade. In a nutshell, shipping is the lifeblood of the global economy. But how is it planning on navigating the complex maze of decarbonisation regulations, which is set to shake up the maritime operations from 2023 onwards? And how will digital technologies feature prominently in their sustainability strategy? And why is a solid data strategy so important too? These are just a few of the things that today's guest, Sarah Barret, is going to be talking about on the podcast today. And we're going to discuss the technology that enables the digital transformation of the maritime industry and much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Hamburg in Germany as Sarah's waiting to join me in conversation about how shipping is waking up to the reality that data-enabled decision-making holds the keys to optimising every vessel and every voyage. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Sarah. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are, what you do, and maybe share your origin story and what put you on this path?
Oh, pleased to meet you. I'm Sarah. I work for Wärtsilä Voyage in product insights. And I got into the maritime industry in about 2004, absolutely by chance. I've been talking to someone about sort of the big arguments I'd been having sort of about whether you have the window open or the air conditioning on, which used more fuel. And someone overheard the conversation and said, gosh, if you can be that enthusiastic sort of for cars, would you be that enthusiastic about sort of fuel consumption on vessels? There's a lot more money to save there. And suddenly I was working in the maritime industry and was working for a company for 10 years. That was analysing the efficiency of engines, how you could improve the efficiency. And it was a small company that was developing lots of new tech and really close with the customers. And customers were excited to have sort of all the insights of the engine, but they were then saying, well, can you share more information with the same timestamp? And so things were then being developed to bring sort of different sets of data together, and we're actually sending them across via floppy disk from the vessel to the shore. And so it was really exciting. It got me they sent me out to dry docks to install new equipment, try and gather different data signals. And I actually then ended up working for a shipping company that was then sitting on the other side, receiving all this data and trying to use all these data points to optimize their fleet. Now I'm really excited to be with Wärtsilä Voyage because we have such a wide portfolio of products with lots of different data sets and all these data sets that I wanted to have when I was working in the shipping company. So I'm really excited to be part of this development.
What a great story. And as you said, it was that path that would lead you to Wärtsilä, which has built a reputation on enabling sustainable societies through technology and innovation, which is why you're here on the podcast today. But can you tell me more about the story behind the company and the problems you set out to solve with technology too?
Yeah, sure. So Wärtsilä is the maritime industry's go-to solutions provider, which helps organizations future-proof their operations and really adapt to existing and emerging technologies. And Wärtsilä really has a deep pedigree as a sort of an original equipment manufacturer and this deep domain expertise in holistic power and propulsion solutions, liquid and gas handling, and voyage optimization and digital technologies. It really gives the organization a broad, wide perspective and a good ability to support customers. I think this knowledge is now really being leveraged against sort of critical challenge of digitalizing and decarbonising shipping.
And one of the big reasons I record this podcast every single day is to try and get people thinking about how technology is transforming areas they don't associate with tech. And just to set the scene for today's conversation, can you tell me more about the impacts of technology on the maritime industry and how it's responsible for the carriage of around 90% of world trade, and why essentially shipping is the lifeblood of the global economy, isn't it?
Well, I think we've really sort of become aware of it, especially with COVID and disruptions that have been happening in the supply chain. I think people are becoming more aware of the impact of shipping. And if you look at estimates from the International Chamber of Shipping, about 11 billion tons of goods transported by ships every year. So from raw materials to cargo containers. And so really everything in our modern world sort of is impacted by technology, and shipping isn't exempt from a need to digitally transform. And tech can be used, of course, also in the maritime industry to really optimize operations and drive efficiencies. Safety is critical. We can improve safety and just help organizations in their efforts to decarbonize. And this transition has been quite slow in the industry, but it's really, really picking up speed now. As we've got to build up resilience in the supply chain, and companies are just realizing the benefits that come from digital transformation.
And you made such a good point at the beginning of your answer there about how we're all waking up to the impact of the shipping industry and the importance of building resiliency there. So I'm curious, how have you seen shipping waking up to the reality of data-enabled decision-making and how it holds the key to optimizing every vessel and every voyage? Because, as you said, it is an industry a little bit like the legal industry that's been accused of being a little bit slow to change. But how have you seen that change over the last few years?
Well, the maritime industry generates vast amounts of data from different sources every day, and even short voyages produce just billions of data points. But analysing this data is still a skill set that's emerging within the sector. So getting to the point where you're sort of drawing out actionable insights from this data, I think can be quite daunting still for some organisations. And for many, I think that organizations are not able to make the most of that gold mine of data that they have at their fingertips just due to complicated and fragmented solutions. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you use intelligent software-based solutions, it's possible to untangle the complex data web and generate tangible, actionable insights, which will really help create a foundation for a bigger shift towards data-driven decision-making within the industry. And I think if you also pair that with, well, if we take the example of just-in-time arrivals, that it's predicted that just enabling just-in-time arrivals, vessels to port, could be saving 15% of emissions.
Wow. Just
like that. But it's not a technical problem. So all the data is there to be able to enable it, but there are contractual barriers to this. And so I think sort of with combining the technical solutions, being able to solve the contractual issues, there are so many opportunities to decarbonize, to increase the resilience. We just need to tap into.
And I would say that every business in every industry have had that same challenge of they're surrounded by this smorgasbord of data almost, but finding the value and finding the insights in those huge piles of data has been incredibly challenging. But advances in artificial intelligence, machine learning is making that process much easier. So I suppose the big question is, how can data help connect the dots across the entire maritime ecosystem, and how can ship owners and operators then use that data to their advantage?
Well, I mean, as I said, the data needs to be integrated, and there are still very insular systems on board. So the data will be collected from the bridge of the system, from the engine room, and not always collected by the same systems. It's then connecting up to ports, and this needs to be transferred to shore. And you don't want to be looking into different softwares. And there's a huge ask for more transparency in the industry. And this is actually where one of the solutions that Wärtsilä Voyage has, the fleet optimization solution, where we're combining this wide range of data points together into one platform to enable ship owners and operators to find these insights. If you think of a ship, if you're wanting to improve the efficiency of a ship, not everything is black and white. You've got to imagine that these vessels are out at sea. They've got different drafts, so different loads that they're carrying, which affects the efficiency. There may be a different trim, or there are different trims of the vessels. The rudder setting might be slightly different. It may be more active or more passive. You've got different weather conditions, the shallow water temperatures. And if you're wanting to analyze and optimize, you've got to compare apples and apples. And so you need vast data sets to really be able to sort of create this digital twin to be able to see what actually are the levers that you can adjust. And so you need to bring all this data together to be able to make such decisions.
And you've talked about optimizing the industry and also increasing efficiencies and sustainability, etc. But do you have any or how have you seen leveraging technology and big data also opening up things like greater transparency and more accountability? Is that something you're seeing too?
Yes, certainly. So data platforms will be sort of uniting multiple sources of information for the most accurate representation of facts in any given situation, whether emissions monitoring, performance monitoring, or weather data. And that's a key lever when considering transparency and accountability from an ESG perspective, as all shipping companies now have their governance competencies rated on the transparency and accountability score of an organization's management, operations, and their processes. And similarly, as shipping becomes more interconnected with the global supply chain, transparency with counterparties and integrating with wider processes and procedures will be essential. And so this standardized and shared data will go beyond being a nice to have, and instead will become business critical as these forces tighten their grip on how the industry operates.
And I'm curious, how is the shipping data evolution that you're seeing there, how is that helping to unlock commercial benefits too?
Well, data-enabled decision-making holds the key to optimizing every vessel and voyage, improving revenue and increasing asset value. So the true power of today's software algorithms is that they make recommendations and then can be analyzed and interpreted by the user to sort of course correct and blending software insights with human reasoning to chart a best course. You've got to imagine that the amount of fuel that a ship is consuming every day, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being burnt per vessel. And just being able to save 1 single percent makes a huge difference. So, in a competitive and capital-driven market, shipping really needs to find every means possible to cut wastage and maximize efficiency. So, fuel consumption, as I already mentioned, is one of the biggest operational costs for ship operators. And using data to find cost savings will help businesses free up money to reinvest in devices that will be able to reap even further energy saving benefits.
And as we look ahead, I've got to ask, what excites you about the future of the industry? Are there any tech trends or anything you can share about the role that you're going to play in this exciting future as well, and leveraging technology, etc.?
Well, the pressures on the regulatory side and society side on reducing emissions is really increasing and forcing the industry to act now. We can see that there's a big pressure on the maritime industry to act now, to reduce emissions, and also to make the role of a seafarer more attractive. Because the days when you signed up to travel the world and visit different countries, it's not the same. Everything has become more efficient. The port calls are much shorter. So that attraction, that romantic idea is not quite the same as it used to be. And technology can help solve this, whether it's decarbonisation through digital solutions, or if it's actually looking at taking away some of the mundane tasks that seafarers have, the hours of looking out at black, empty sea. There are so many opportunities that we can unlock now. And I'm really excited with Voyage. We'll shortly be announcing a new floating lab, an ex-government patrol vessel, which really gives us an opportunity to fail fast, innovate, and really experiment with technologies that will help us along sort of the path of developing highly automated solutions for ships. I'm really excited about it.
Wow, it sounds like we're going to have to get you back on later in the year to find out more about that big announcement. But we started the podcast today talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. And I think if most people think about the maritime industry, they will also think of great stories. So I've got to ask, to leave us today, can you share the funniest or most interesting story that has happened in your career?
God, well, it's tricky finding the funniest, but one that I like remembering back to is one time over just before Christmas, we had to do an installation job on a gas platform just outside Trinidad, and no one wanted to go, and I couldn't believe it. I was thinking, wow, what an opportunity to go to Trinidad in a previous company. And then I found out why, because there was helicopter training that you had to do beforehand. So you had to spend several days in Trinidad. You can think of worse things, where you were then sort of put in this device that sort of simulated a helicopter falling into water. So you'd be turned upside down, be sunk underwater. You'd have to swim out of the helicopter. And I thought this was awesome. And even getting paid to do this. And then sort of had the technology that had to sort of go on a helicopter to the gas platform, and they were wanting to monitor their cylinder pressures at the same time and have it in a digital format. And this kind of equipment was quite expensive. They couldn't afford to have one system for every platform, so they wanted a mobile solution. And it had to be robust, so every cable was put in something. Well, reminds me a bit sort of your shower tubing. So it was really, really heavy. We actually had to get 2 helicopters to transport all this equipment. And I then got on board, we got onto the platform, and found out these cables, you could pretty much wrap them around the engines twice. Someone had confused inches and centimeters. Oh. So the equipment was completely wrongly laid out. It had to be refitted. And not only that, some of the indicator cocks on the engines were blocked, couldn't be opened. So I couldn't even commission the system properly. So it was just a really, really mad week. But it was great. I love being with customers, seeing how they use the technology, how we can help them improve, and in all sorts of fascinating situations.
Wow.
Yeah, I meet so many fascinating people in my job, and that keeps me going.
What an amazing story, and something you will never forget, of course, that week you spent in Trinidad with the helicopter simulations, etc. Just fantastic. And
it was pouring with rain, by the way.
Was it? Oh, you've ruined it now. In my head, as you're telling the story, I've got blue skies and the wind in your hair. It's just, never mind. But for everyone listening that would just like to find out more information about anything we talked about today, what's the best starting point for everything, including contacting your team if anyone's got any questions?
Yeah. So Wärtsilä Voyage is obviously available online. We're on Twitter, and if you want to reach out to me, then you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place.
Awesome. Well, I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find out more information about that nice and easily. And I think many industries have been accused of being slow to adapt to technological change. And it's great to hear how the shipping and maritime industry is waking up to the reality that data-enabled decision-making holds the key to optimizing every vessel and every voyage. And of course, this is an industry that impacts every single one of us in the world. That's something we all know all too well now. But just a big thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
So a big thank you to Sarah for sitting down with me today and discussing how data can help connect the dots across the entire maritime ecosystem and how ship owners and operators can use data to their advantage. I know you have unique experiences and insights, and I want you to be part of this conversation. And there are many ways that you can contact me. Simply email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you would like to slide into my DMs and send me an audio message on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, you can find me at Neil C. Hughes. I always like to finish every episode by saying technology works best when it brings people together. And the fact that you tune in every single day further proves that point. So I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.